everybody. Hi, it's Becky from Power Tools with Thread. This is part 2 of a video series that I was doing on how to create machine applique from a paper pattern. And on the first one, which is linked below, you will be able to see that we started with this cute little flower. This is a coloring book page, and it doesn't matter if you pull an image off the web or if you use a paper pattern that you have from a quilt applique pattern. Maybe you have one you'd like to make. We're doing this in preparation for the Warmest Wishes sew along from Urban Elements. I'll link to this below as well. And you can either, if you want to sew along with us, you can either purchase just the paper pattern, or you can purchase also the pre-cut laser applique pieces, and I'm going to show how to do both during that. That sew along starts on July 6th and will run the whole week. In the last video, I showed you what you need to do if you have a paper pattern that has intersecting parts. A lot of quilt applique patterns have pieces that are already separated. And so when you have intersecting parts, you have to separate them. And I made a tracing of that flower image and separated my pieces out. We're going to create machine embroidery applique by using a software that is called Simply Applique, and that is made by Brother. It is part of the BES4 or BES4 Dream Edition software, and you do not need a Brother machine in order to be able to do what I'm about to show you. You can open Simply Applique on a Windows machine. It will not work on a Mac, and it will not work on a Mac with a Windows module in it, we don't think. So if you have a Windows machine, you'll be able to do this. I'm going to get into the technicals of this just a little bit to help you understand how Simply Applique works and how much fun it can be. It's really very simple, and you do not need to be a computer person at all to know how to do this. You also don't need any other embroidery software at all. Some of you may have other larger embroidery programs that do everything, including digitizing. And if you're not sure if your machine embroidery program can do this or not, I'm going to tell you a file type here in a minute, and that you can look in user manual or in online and see if your machine software does this or not. So in order to be able to use Simply Applique, you have to create what is called an FCM file format. Because I'm a nerd, I made a little PowerPoint slide here to show you what I'm talking about. If you have the Brother Scan and Cut, the Brother Scan and Cut uses an SVG file, and that SVG is a scalable vector graphic, and it uses it to create a cut file. And the Scan and Cut, or the Brother Canvas Cloud, also creates what's called an FCM file. And that FCM file is used to create an embroidery applique file using Simply Applique or BES4. So if you want to know if your embroidery software will do this, look in your manual for this FCM. Do a search and see if you can find FCM. If it's not there, it probably can't do this. To do this, you want to just scan in your paper pattern. If you do not have a Scan and Cut, and let's say you have a Cricut or a Silhouette, there is a way for you to be able to print out a calibration page for your phone to use their app on your phone, and then create an SVG file using that. I do not know the specifics on the Cricut or the Silhouette, and so you're going to need to look in your user manual to see how to do that. But once you have the SVG file created, you can then upload that into the Brother Canvas Cloud. And then from there, it will create the FCM file. We're going to use the Brother Scan and Cut to cut out the fabric pieces and then import the FCM file created by the Brother Scan and Cut into Simply Applique software and stitch it all down using the embroidery machine, and not having to do that, you know, stitch, stitch, turn, stitch, turn. That is just so much work to me. This is a lot of fun, and it's super easy. Also, on my channel, you can go into my playlists and look for Simply Applique, and there are a lot of videos there, and you can see me doing this several times and explaining it as I go as well. So there's a lot of resource out there for you. Now that the fabric has been cut out, you want to hit the back arrow and you want to go to save. You can either save this to a USB and take it to your laptop, or you can save it to the cloud and then download it wirelessly. To save it to the USB, you would hit this button right here, which is the USB. That's a universal symbol for USB, and there's a USB port over here on the right side of the machine. But I want to save it to the cloud because I'm going to go into the Brother Canvas and just wirelessly transfer it to my laptop. And I'm telling it okay. Before we get into actually playing with the Simply Applique software, I just want to let you guys know Simply Applique is a module that is part of the BES4 software package. So it is marketed by Brother to be purchased separately at a much lesser price, but Simply Applique is only good for one thing, and that is for turning a design into a machine embroidery applique file. It will create the placement stitch, the tack down stitch, and a final stitch, whether it's satin or blanket or bean or motif or whatever you want. It has very limited editing capabilities. So if you need to do any kind of editing at all, like in the scan and cut, I duplicated a leaf and made 2 of them. You can do that in Simply Applique, but sometimes things get a little wonky. So I recommend that if you're going to do any kind of major editing like that, that you do that outside of Simply Applique. Not that you can't, but you just want to be sure that whatever it is that you're doing actually comes out the way you want it to. This is the Brother Canvas Workspace. It's canvasworkspace.brother.com. You can go to Google and just type in Brother Canvas and it will come up. You can create an account and it is free to do that. And since I uploaded the design from the scan and cut into the Canvas Workspace, I'm just going to click on My Projects. And there it is right there. This button right here is to edit. I click that and it looks pretty good. The only reason I put the design in the Brother Canvas was so that I could download the FCM file wirelessly to my laptop so that I can use it in the Simply Applique software. There's no other reason that I did that. I don't need to do anything with the design at all. So I'm going to hit the download button. And right here, this very first one says download to PC, FCM. I'm going to click that. And when you do that, it comes to your downloads folder. And I don't need to go into that or open that right now because I can't do anything with it. So I'm all finished with the Brother Canvas. When you open Simply Applique, this is what your screen will look like. This is a brand new document. If you don't see this up here in the left corner, there's a little white paper with the corner turned down. That is the icon for new. You can click that and you'll get this nice white screen. So in order to be able to import the FCM file, you go up here to the A and click it and you get a menu and you scroll all the way down here to almost about 2/3 of the way down and click Import FCM. It wants to know where you want to get it from. It went to my downloads folder and there it is right there. And I'm going to click open. But that's what I need right there. So there's the design from the Brother Canvas Workspace. Now, if you have the design on a USB and you didn't use the Brother Canvas, you would come over here to the A and you would click Import FCM, and then you would navigate to your USB drive and open it from there. That's how simple that would be. I'm going to click cancel. Now, the first thing you want to do is center the design. So I'm going to go to arrange and I'm going to highlight. It doesn't know, see how the center's grayed out? It doesn't know what I want to center. So I'm going to click on the design and now it's all highlighted and now I'm going to hit center. Yeah, see how it kind of aligned itself right here on the one, and center is actually 0, 0, which is way up here, and it doesn't do that when you first import for some reason. So I'm going to click center just to give me an idea of how things are going to fit. Now, another thing you want to do right off the bat is select a hoop. So I'm going to go to home and hoop, and I want I'm going to use my 9x14, which is this one. When you click on it, it'll tell you right there the size. You can click through them to see what hoops are available. If you don't have a brother machine, you can click here and you can choose any of the design file types that your machine takes to get your hoop. I'm going to click apply and OK. If you go over here to the left side and click the plus sign, here you can see each piece of the artwork, and you need to be able to know what these are in order to put them in the proper sequence so that they stitch out properly. If you think back to the original flower image, the very first thing that would need to go down is the stem so that the petals cover the stem. You can hover your mouse until the little hand shows up. I'm just going to move these out of the way for now, and I'm going to grab this and turn it this way by grabbing hover your mouse over the little blue dot and turn it and make it vertical. There we go. That's pretty good. Scroll back out. I'm using the scroll button on my mouse to scroll around and make it zoom in and out. And I'm going to put this right here, and I'm going to put this right here. I'm going to take this leaf and I'm going to move it right there. And this leaf, I need to rotate it. That reminds me, we need to flip the whole 9 yards horizontal because we cut the fabric out upside down. So I'm going to come up here over on the left side and highlight this. It just has a 0, but it selects all, and I'm going to flip horizontal. There, that works. So you can tell by the grid that maybe these leaves are not exactly level. If you put your mouse up in the very top where the numbers are and hold on to it and drag, you can see that is a placement line, and it gives you a good idea of what you need to do. There, that looks pretty good. Now we need to put each piece of artwork. First thing I'm going to do is rename them. If you highlight the artwork, right click on it and go to rename, and I'm going to call it petals. And this one is going to be rename left leaf. Right click, rename stem. This is important that you do this, because when you get to having a whole bunch of different pieces, you're going to want to know what's what. And if you're not sure, when you click on it, it will highlight. And that way you can tell what's what. Let me right click, rename, and right leaf. Enter. All right, now we need to put the design pieces into the order they need to go so they stitch out properly. In order to move things around, you want to highlight it and hold your mouse button down and drag it to hover over wherever it will go underneath. So watch, the left leaf is now under the center. I want to think about the color so I don't have to change threads all the time. Now it will stitch out left leaf, stem, right leaf, petals, center. Perfect. And I want to highlight all. I want to center in the hoop. There we go. Highlight all. Go to tools. Here's where the magic happens. Convert to applique. And it did it. Perfect. If you want to play around with the color of your thread, you can. You don't have to. So now
look over here in the left menu for the sequence view and look and see it has an A, that's an applique. Click that. There's your placement stitch, your tack down stitch, your final stitch. Every one of them will have that. I do not recommend doing any design editing after you have converted it to applique. This should be the last step that you do before you save the design. But this looks like it's going to stitch out great. I don't want a heavy satin stitch. I'm going to highlight all of this by doing Control A on my keyboard. Let's look over here in the right on the properties. Applique type is satin. If you wanted to change it to a blanket stitch, you could. And then you would click apply. All right, that looks great. It has a stitch length 2.0, a width of 3.5, and a density of 3.5. It has a placement offset of 0, which means that's exactly where you need to put your piece and iron it down. And then it has a tack down offset of minus 0.5. I'm probably not going to do that stitch because I don't want it to show up inside of the blanket stitches. I'm going to leave it just like it is. I would do it on the satin stitching. And then if you wanted to change any of these, you could. And it just depends on which one you choose, the satin, the blanket, the motif, or the run, in order to be able to make that work. And you can change them around. Again, there are those who test and those who wish they did. So I highly recommend you do a test before you do your final project. Everything looks good. I'm going to leave it as is. I'm ready to stitch this out. I need to save it. And so I'm going up here to the A and I'm going to go Save As. And it defaults to Pace Setter Outline Files BRF. I am going to go up here to Embroidery and I'm going to see, you can change it to Brother, Baby Lock, Bernina. Here's your Janome, Viking, Pfaff, Tajima, Singer, Bernina, whatever you need. I'm going to save it PESV10. I'm going to call it Flower Blanket Stitch so I know, and save. That's it. I'm all done. Once you've saved the file, you can also go File, Save As, and go to this PC and choose your USB drive to save it there so that you can transfer the design to your embroidery machine. So again, you would go through this and save it, Flower. You don't have to do this. I'm going to do it again because I prefer the wireless option. I'm going to go into Embrilliance. Once you're in Embrilliance, I'm just going to open up a folder here on my bottom menu. I'm going to go to Embroidery. I'm going to go to Floral. And there's my flower blanket stitch. I'm going to drag it in and highlight it, and I'm going to turn it. Perfect. I like that. That looks really good. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Utility, Send to Solaris XP1. I'm going to call it Flower, and OK. I'm going to click OK. I'm all done. No USB drive required. Let's go to the embroidery machine.
Okay, so now we're at the machine and I am about ready to find the design and get going. I have already hooped my 9x14 hoop with some background fabric, and this is tearaway stabilizer. I'm going to touch the screen to get going. I'm going to go to Embroidery and the pocket for the memory, and I sent it wirelessly, so I'll touch the wireless button. There's my flower right there, so I'm going to touch it. Now this says the embroidery data does not include enough thread information, and that's okay because I already know what thread I'm going to use. Again, Simply Applique is a limited program. I didn't give it a whole bunch of thread data, and I could have, but I didn't. So I'm going to tell it set, and we're ready to go. One of the things I like to do is I have a 20 spool thread stand I keep behind the machine. On my machine, I keep white and black at all times, and then behind it is where I'll change out my colors. And that just works very well for me. I run them up through the top of the spool stand, and then I tuck the ends into that little spring, and that keeps everything nice and neat and ready to go for me. I'm using a mixture of Madeira Polyneon and Isacord. Sometimes I throw in Floriani into the mix. I am not particular on threads. I use what color I happen to have on hand, regardless of the brand. So now I'm going to touch embroidery. Right here it tells you that each one of these is going to take a minute. I have green thread already loaded in the machine, so I'm going to put the foot down and get going. Remember we told it to stitch the left leaf first? Normally I would go ahead and go to the iron and iron this down, but what I'm going to do is I want to iron it all at one time. So, because I only want to make a couple of trips to the iron, I'm going to go to the needle plus minus, and I want to jump ahead to stitch down the placement stitch of the stem. There it is. And now I want to jump ahead to the placement stitch of the right leaf. There it is. I'm going to go iron all my pieces down. I'll be right back. Hey, the pieces are all ironed down. So now I want to go back and do the blanket stitch around all of the greens. So let me swing you around here to the screen so you can see what I'm doing. And using these up and down arrows, I'm going to go back to there's the blanket stitch on the left leaf. I'm going to continue to navigate through the stitches on the screen and do the blanket stitch on the rest of the pieces. Now it is time to change thread colors and do petal placement. Time to go to the ironing board. And final color change for the yellow center. Time to put on the yellow center. Okay, so we're all finished and it turned out so cute. I'm going to bring it up close so you can take a look at the stitching. Look how precise that turned out and so pretty. Look at that. So there's a little bit of work that happens up front in order to configure Simply Applique, but otherwise you're using the scan and cut to cut out your pieces and a little bit of computer time in there to turn everything and place it the way you want, and then you're off to the machine, and this is such a time saver and it's so much fun, and I really think you're going to enjoy it. So again, join us on our sew along. It starts July 6th with the Warmest Wishes wall hanging from Urban Elements. Again, I'll link to it below. I'll also link to the Simply Applique software that you can get from allbrands.com. And I hope you enjoy this, and I hope that this changes the way you look at applique quilts forever. We'll talk to you soon. Go sew something. Bye.